The moment Rowan Mercer saw his coworker sitting at his reserved table, his heart sank. Not because he disliked her. Not because he was angry. But because that table represented something he had spent months preparing for, a fragile promise to his 8-year-old daughter that tonight would finally be different. The little restaurant by the river glowed under the warm afternoon sunlight. Outside, people laughed, children chased pigeons across the walkway, and boats drifted lazily across the sparkling water. It should have been a perfect day. Instead, Rowan stood frozen near the entrance, staring at the woman sitting exactly where he and his daughter were supposed to be. If you've ever believed in kindness, second chances, and unexpected miracles, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to A Journey of Hearts. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the smallest acts of compassion can change an entire life. Rowan had been a single father for nearly 6 years. At 36, he had learned how to braid hair despite having no idea where to begin. He had learned how to comfort nightmares, attend school recitals, pack lunches, and somehow survive on 4 hours of sleep when his daughter got sick. What he had never learned was how to stop missing his wife. Her sudden passing years earlier had shattered everything. For a long time, Rowan moved through life like a shadow. The only reason he kept going was his daughter, Arya. She became his entire world. Every morning he woke up for her. Every overtime shift he accepted was for her. Every sacrifice he made was because he wanted her future to be brighter than his present. But lately, things had become harder. The company where Rowan worked had gone through restructuring. Hours were longer. Deadlines were tighter. Bills seemed to arrive faster than paychecks. Despite all of it, he never complained. At least not out loud. Yet exhaustion lived behind his eyes. Everyone at work could see it. Especially one coworker. Her name was Celine Hart. She worked 2 floors above him in project management. Unlike most people in the office, Celine never spoke much about herself. She was quiet. Observant. Kind in ways that often went unnoticed. While others discussed promotions and vacations, Celine seemed more interested in making sure everyone around her was okay. Over the past year, Rowan and Celine had occasionally shared coffee breaks and work meetings. Nothing more. They were co-workers. Friendly co-workers. That was all. Or so Rowan believed. A few weeks earlier, Arya's birthday had arrived. Unfortunately, Rowan had been forced to cancel their celebration. Unexpected expenses had consumed the money he had carefully saved. His daughter had smiled and said it was okay. But Rowan noticed the disappointment she tried so hard to hide. That smile haunted him for days. Determined to make it right, he secretly saved every spare dollar he could find. Skipping lunches. Walking instead of driving whenever possible. Working extra shifts. Finally, he had enough. Enough for one special afternoon. Enough for the riverside restaurant Arya always admired whenever they walked past it. Enough for a memory. That morning, Rowan picked Arya up from school early. Her excitement filled the car. The sunshine painted golden patterns across her face as she talked endlessly about books, friends, and dreams. For the first time in months, Rowan felt hopeful. Maybe today could heal something. Maybe today could remind them both that happiness still existed. When they arrived at the restaurant, however, his optimism vanished. Someone was already sitting at their reserved table. And that someone was Celine. Confusion twisted inside him. Why was she there? Had there been a mistake? Had the restaurant accidentally given away their reservation? Arya squeezed his hand. Rowan forced a smile. He didn't want her to see his disappointment. The hostess approached and looked equally confused. Before Rowan could speak, Celine stood up. For a brief moment, neither of them said anything. Then something unexpected happened. Celine smiled. Not the polite smile coworkers exchange in hallways. A different smile. One carrying emotion. One carrying purpose. Rowan noticed several wrapped boxes near the table. Colorful balloons. Fresh flowers. And a small birthday cake. His mind struggled to process what he was seeing. The table wasn't occupied. It had been transformed. The realization hit him slowly. This wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. Every decoration. Every detail. Every carefully chosen element. Celine had somehow created the birthday celebration Rowan had desperately wanted to give his daughter. The restaurant seemed to disappear around him. For several seconds, all he could do was stare. Arya gasped. Her eyes widened. Pure wonder spread across her face. The kind of joy children feel when they discover something magical. Tears immediately threatened Rowan's composure. Months of stress. Months of guilt. Months of feeling like he was failing as a father. All collided inside his chest. Only then did he learn the truth. Several coworkers had quietly noticed his struggle. They saw the extra shifts. The skipped lunches. The fatigue. The sacrifices. Most importantly, they saw how fiercely he loved his daughter. Celine had organized everything. Without seeking credit. Without expecting recognition. She had spoken to coworkers. Collected contributions. Reserved the restaurant. Ordered the cake. Decorated the table. She even remembered Arya's favorite colors from a casual conversation months earlier. Rowan felt overwhelmed. Not because of the gifts. Not because of the decorations. But because someone had cared enough to notice. For years, he had carried every burden alone. Suddenly, he wasn't alone anymore. The afternoon unfolded like a dream. Sunlight danced across the river. Laughter echoed around the table. Arya opened small gifts from coworkers she barely knew. She hugged everyone. She smiled so much her cheeks hurt. And Rowan watched. Every second felt precious. Every moment felt borrowed from a happier world. Yet what affected him most wasn't the celebration. It was watching Celine interact with his daughter. She listened carefully. Encouraged every story. Answered every question. There was no performance. No attempt to impress. Just genuine kindness. For the first time in years, Rowan noticed something uncomfortable. His heart wasn't entirely closed anymore. That realization scared him. After losing his wife, he had convinced himself that part of his life was over. Love belonged to another chapter. Another lifetime. His responsibility now was simply survival. Nothing else. But as the afternoon stretched onward, those walls began to crack. The following weeks brought unexpected changes. What started as gratitude evolved into friendship. Friendship slowly became something deeper. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Life rarely works that way. Instead, it happened through ordinary moments. Coffee shared before meetings. Conversations after work. Walks through city parks. Small acts of support. One evening, Rowan's car broke down during a storm. Before he could figure out a solution, Celine arrived with jumper cables and hot chocolate. Another time, Celine faced a family emergency. Without hesitation, Rowan stepped in to help. Trust formed naturally. Steadily. Patiently. Meanwhile, Arya seemed delighted by the growing friendship. Children often recognize truths adults try to ignore. She saw happiness returning to her father's face long before he noticed it himself. Months passed. Winter surrendered to spring. The city bloomed with color. And somewhere along the way, Rowan realized he looked forward to seeing Celine more than anyone else. Not because she rescued him. Not because she solved his problems. But because she understood him. She understood grief. Struggle. Responsibility. Hope. Unknown to Rowan, Celine carried her own scars. Years earlier, she had lost someone she loved deeply. The experience taught her how lonely grief could be. She recognized that same loneliness inside Rowan the first day they met. Perhaps that was why she noticed the things others missed. The quiet exhaustion. The hidden sadness. The determination masking heartbreak. One afternoon, nearly a year after the birthday celebration, Rowan found himself standing beside the same river where everything had begun. The water reflected sunlight exactly as it had that day. The same restaurant stood nearby. The same gentle breeze drifted across the walkway. Beside him stood Celine. Ahead of them ran Arya. Laughing. Healthy. Happy. For a long moment, Rowan watched his daughter. Then he looked at the woman who had changed both their lives. He remembered arriving at the restaurant believing someone had taken his table. Instead, someone had given him far more than a table. She had given him proof that kindness still existed. Proof that people could care. Proof that life sometimes surprises us when we least expect it. Most importantly, she had given him permission to hope again. The hope he thought grief had stolen forever. As sunlight illuminated the river, Rowan understood something profound. The greatest gifts rarely arrive wrapped in boxes. Sometimes they arrive disguised as coworkers. As strangers. As unexpected acts of compassion. As people willing to stand beside us when life becomes too heavy to carry alone. If this story has touched your heart so far, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and share a heart emoji for everyone who believes kindness can change lives. Years later, Rowan would struggle to remember every detail of that afternoon. He would forget what food they ordered. He would forget which songs played in the background. He would even forget some of the gifts Arya received. But one thing remained crystal clear. The moment he walked into that restaurant believing something had gone wrong. And the moment he discovered something beautiful had gone right. Because sometimes life doesn't take away our seat at the table. Sometimes it saves a place for someone new. Someone who helps us heal. Someone who reminds us that love isn't limited by loss. Someone who proves that even after our darkest chapters, another story is waiting to begin. And perhaps that's the real miracle. Not finding happiness. But finding the courage to accept it when it finally arrives. Special request * comment below with the words, "Kindness still exists," if you believe one small act of compassion can change someone's entire life. As Rowan watched the river shimmer beneath the afternoon sun, he realized that the most important moments are often the ones we never plan. A reserved table became a life-changing memory. A coworker's kindness became a new beginning. And a little girl's birthday became the day a broken heart started beating fully again. If this story moved you, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to A Journey of Hearts so more people can discover stories that inspire hope, healing, and second chances. Because somewhere out there, someone may be waiting for a reminder that they are not alone. And sometimes, that reminder arrives at exactly the right table.